She is a mind-body healing guide who helps others to turn their wounds into wisdom and pain into power. Tell me that's not one of the best sentences you've ever heard. Her name is Leah Drew, and I'm super excited to have her on my show. Welcome to the show, Leah.
I'm so happy to be here, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
I am really happy that we were introduced. We got to meet at Podcast Movement. It was the founder of Podmatch. His wife introduced us, and we've been chatting more together than I've chatted with her now since this event. You're just such an amazing person, and I love you, and I'm really happy that you're here.
Oh, thanks, girl. Love you back. And yeah, it's been really wonderful connecting with you. I love how the right people make the right connections for you in the right place, right time. And sometimes you just get to surrender and trust the universe.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about yourself that I don't already know. Where did you grow up? Where are you originally from?
I grew up in a town called Mansfield in Massachusetts. So I am an East Coast girl. I've got Boston blood in me. I've got that fiery, give it to you straight kind of attitude. But I've also learned to soften, and I've also learned to find the softness and the surrender that is so important in life.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're living out here in Colorado. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
different kind of pace to the world out here.
Oh, it's so nice. It's such a breath of fresh air, especially coming out of LA, which is where I lived prior to being in Colorado.
Me too.
And, here it's just like everyone's a little extra hippie crunchy. And I love that everyone's so much more connected with the earth and they always want to be outside, no matter what time of year it is.
Yep, absolutely. My husband is one of the worst for wanting to go hiking in the snow. I'm not going. So, of course, this show is all about survivors and the stories of hope that live on. So, tell me about what it is that you had to survive.
Wow. That's a big question. I feel like there's so many answers to that. For me, I navigated a really emotionally stressful childhood, and I hate comparing to others because you just can't do that. You can't compare one experience to another because at the end of the day, the body responds in the exact same way, regardless of what it is that someone endures. And for me, I had great parents who weren't so great together. And it led to me not feeling seen, not feeling heard, not feeling emotionally supported by my parents. My parents divorced. And so then there was the meshing of two families that was not easy. And a lot of that emotional stress led me to find out at 16 years old that I had a pancreatic tumor the size of an orange.
Oh,
Yeah. And at the time, I didn't fully understand the severity of that. I didn't understand really what was happening until later on when I was going through college. And I was like, oh, that was actually like a huge deal. That was not a small thing. And I ended up having major abdominal surgery at 16 years old after being admitted into the emergency room for internal bleeding. That was probably one of the most painful experiences of my entire life. I've broken a lot of bones, but internally bleeding is just nothing that compares pain wise. So, over the years, I started developing severe anxiety, severe depression. I became suicidal and was navigating chronic pain. I herniated multiple discs in my lumbar spine, and I started having all of these major chronic health symptoms, some autoimmune disease symptoms. And I was going through the cycle of Western medicine that is not designed to help people when it comes to chronic health conditions, as you and I have spoken about. And I got so fed up with it. I was so frustrated, and I had to say, I'm done. I need to learn how to support myself because very clearly, no one else is going to support me in the way that I need. And up to that point, people had just given me pills, had given me all these things that were really just band-aids for the wound instead of helping me care for the actual wound and the root, which at the end of the day, I came to understand and find out was trauma, emotional stress, my lack of ability to regulate my own self and my nervous system. And I really set out to heal myself and to change my lifestyle, to change my habits, to change my mindset, and to heal the trauma that I've experienced, not just in my life, but that my family has experienced in generations past that were influencing how I was experiencing the world around me.
And I was reading something that you wrote about how you went deep into understanding how your history of trauma and epigenetics played a role in the development of your tumor. So, for the people who don't know, what is epigenetics?
I love this question. Epigenetics is the study of your environment and how it affects your genetic expression. And so you probably have heard before people being like, oh, it's genetic. And every time I hear that from clients that come to me or people that I work with, I'm like, yes, and you're given this set of genetics, but your epigenetics are what dictates what is expressed and what is not. It's kind of like a light switch, to put simply. Your epigenetics either flip the light switch on or flip the light switch off. And so epigenetics can look like the relationships around you. It can look like the air that you're breathing, the water that you're drinking. It can look like the soaps and products that you're putting on your skin, things that have chemicals and just things that aren't good for your body in them. Um, can look like GMOs and pesticides. All of these things are what go under the umbrella of epigenetics and the environmental factors that play a role in how your genes are expressing.
Very cool. So, I can see a lot of connections between a lot of chemical processed foods and organic foods there. There's a
Big time.
massive difference that our bodies exude depending on what it is that we're putting into it. There's a lot of soaps and stuff with chemical dyes that I'm allergic to. I can't use those things. Yeah, we react in very strong ways. Some of us stronger than others, but we all react.
Big time. And I like to divide it into different sections, right? You have your physical body, you have your mental body, you have your emotional body, and you have your energetic body. And so when you can divide them up into those four aspects of health and well-being, it becomes a little bit easier to look at each one of them and say, okay, you've got your physical health. What's influencing your physical health, right? The ways that you're moving your body, your lymphatic system, um, exercise, breathing, right? You have your mental body, which is your mindset and your thoughts, your beliefs. You have your emotional body, which really starts to bring in your emotional experience, your experience of trauma, the traumas you've had from the past, your genetic experiences of trauma. And then you have your energetic body, which can be, I'll say that in a second. Your energetic body can look like things like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, like actual energetic fields that are influencing yours. And what's beautiful is that there's an underlying current within all four of these. And so, yeah, they should overlap. It's kind of like the foundation of your house, right? You have to have a strong foundation in order for the roof to be sturdy and for things to be sitting right and hold up. And so, for example, your emotional body influences your mental body, and your emotional body influences your energetic body. Your emotions are energy in motion. And so, if you're sitting in fear, stress, anxiety, if you're having emotions like anger, things that are having a lower vibrational frequency or a frequency that's really putting the balance of your body off, that's going to affect your energetic body, which then influences your electromagnetic field, which influences not just how things are functioning inside your body, your organs, um, everything within you, but also what's happening outside of your body. And that's where I always say you have to go within to change what's happening without, right? As within, so without. So, in order to change the world and the experience around you, the jobs you're attracting, the people you're attracting, the relationships that you're having, you have to go in first and work with what is happening within you, because it's going to play a big role in everything else.
So, you talk about radically taking responsibility for your own mental, physical, and emotional health. I mean, you're an expert at this. This is what you now teach other people to do. What's the first step? I mean, this seems like something that's so incredibly overwhelming. I can see somebody listening to this or watching us and going, I can't do that. And they can't. They can't. But where do they start?
Well, the first thing is becoming the observer. And the first thing that you really need to do, I divide this into three aspects when I'm working with someone. You have to assess. You have to assess what's happening in your world. What is it that feels good? What doesn't feel good, right? Becoming the observer and learning how to step back a little bit, right? Almost like zoom out and be the witness of your experience. And once you do that, you get to step into acceptance that this is the experience that you're having and you play a role in that. And something that's really common is that victim mindset, right? Where you're oftentimes wanting to blame someone else for the experience that you're having. And regardless of what experience it is that you're navigating, you play some sort of role in that experience. And that can be one of the most challenging things to accept. You know, for me, I had this conversation with someone the other day. You know, I have a history of sexual abuse. I was raped twice going through college. And it was so hard for me to accept my role in that experience.
And that
Yes, they
doesn't
did
mean
some.
blame.
No, not at all. In no way, shape, or form is that blame. But, you know, for me, you know, I was drinking. I was drunk. I could not set boundaries for myself. There were things that I got to take responsibility for that led to the outcome of the situation, which was me being sexually assaulted, which was me being violated. And again, you know, that person does have a role to play as well, but you can only take that radical acceptance for the role that you play. You can't take acceptance for the other person's side, for the other person's actions. And so once you can accept that, you can start to unravel things and you can start to look at how can you take action to align yourself with the things that do feel good, to release the things that are preventing you from being in alignment, and reprogram the experience that you're having, reprogram your thoughts, your beliefs, the way you act, your habits. And once you move through that action phase, you then can start to step into that adaptation phase. And this is where you get to learn, you get to adapt, you get to continue to be the observer. And in that adaptation phase, you can start to really embody, right? Becoming that future you right now, because you understand your values. You've been able to reprogram those beliefs. You've been able to release the things holding you back. And then as you start to embody, you can start to create changes and adapt your environment so that you can really start to step into something different, a fully different experience, a change, whatever that change looks like for you. And so that's how I really help and navigate helping others, I should say, move through changing their life and really becoming more empowered over their ability to create shifts.
This is some powerful stuff. This is amazing. And I know a lot of us have heard of functional medicine. If you haven't heard of functional medicine, definitely look into it. But not everybody has heard of functional movement, and that's movement as medicine. So tell us a little bit about that. What does that look like?
Functional movement for me is something that I've used to learn how to communicate with my body, because communication is so important in any aspect of life, whether you're communicating with yourself or with someone else. And functional movement is truly movement that is supporting you in the functionality that you need for the life that you're living. So, for example, if you're someone that sits at a desk all day long, functional movement can be something that's going to help strengthen the opposite of what you're doing at the desk all day long. So that might look like hip mobility. That might look like spinal mobility. That might look like vestibular, which is your eyes, your eye movement, vestibular training, because you're looking at the same spot on the screen all day long. that might look like posterior chain, the back of your body, and strengthening that so that you can open up the hips, so that you can stabilize the hips and the pelvis, so that you can strengthen the back, so that you're not in that forward leaning position all day long. So functional movement is really moving for functionality and doing so in a mindful manner. For me, I have a history of bodybuilding, and it really was not a mindful way of moving. It was separating one muscle at a time rather than treating the body as a whole and training the body as a whole being and something that functions together.
Very cool. I learn so much from you every time we talk. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but I just love it. Um, and I know you have a blog. You also have your podcast, and people, I was blessed to be on her podcast recently. I love it. I love what you're doing. Tell me a story from your podcast. What is it that you talk about on your podcast? What's your podcast about?
So, my podcast is called the Mindful Evolution Podcast. And the intention of the podcast is to really help people connect more with themselves and create changes in their life so that they can evolve in a more mindful way, so that they can love the life that they're living, so that they can take care of their bodies just a little bit better, so that they can start to think differently, right? Shift that mindset. Because I'm truly a huge believer that we are in need, a deep need of a more mindful approach to the way that humans evolve. And that is on many levels, from government to the education system to the individual and their families and how they're raising children. And so the Mindful Evolution podcast is here to help you better understand how you can do these things, how you can be more mindful and create something different by shifting the way that you're evolving through life. And so, share with you a story. I talked to some really cool people on my podcast. As you know, it's so fun. You're always taking something away. Recently, I had a conversation with a friend. She's a great friend of mine. She's actually someone who has played a really significant role for me in my healing journey. And her name is Amy Natalie, is what she goes by. And she has a podcast called the Feminine Frequency Podcast. And I came across her podcast a couple of years ago when I really started stepping into my feminine wounds, the wounds of my family, the wounds that I started stepping into, being ready to navigate the trauma and the wounds between me and my mother, and started looking at the wounds between her and her mother and my grandmother and her mother. Because it is really important when you're moving through a healing journey to look at the 3 generations that come before you, including yourself, so that you can gain an understanding of, well, how did you learn these things? How did you come to understand that which you believe, the values that you have? And a lot of that has to do with what your parents, your grandparents, and your great grandparents navigated in their life, and the challenges that they faced. And so recently I had a really great conversation with her, and on our podcast, we discussed the masculine and feminine energies and how every single person gets to find the balance between both of those. And it doesn't matter what gender you identify with, you still have masculine and feminine energies. And it was a really beautiful conversation because it just reminded me of the importance of being able to not just find the structure and be with the doing in life, but also being able to find the flow and the relaxation and the calm and that nurturing self. And it was just a really enjoyable conversation because, yes, she works primarily with women, and it's something that a lot of men don't really understand, and they have a difficult time accepting, I think, because society tells them that being with your feminine is not a masculine thing to do. And in reality, in my eyes and many of the conscious individuals in my community, a man that can be with his feminine is a really attractive, strong masculine. And a woman that can be with her healthy masculine is a really strong, powerful, attractive feminine. And so if there's something that I can encourage anyone that's listening now, it's to dive deeper into looking at both your masculine and your feminine energies. Because oftentimes when we're feeling overwhelmed, when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling out of balance, and we're not really sure what to do, one of those might be off and might be leading us to not support a particular part of ourselves. And by bringing both of those together, it can not only support with health and wellness and healing, but also reducing the stress and finding balance in your life, balance in your relationships, whether that be with yourself, with others, with your work life. And it's a really powerful tool to look more deeply at these different components of your world and where you might be able to bring a little bit more focus, attention, or the opposite, let go and release a little bit of your focus and attention on.
Very nice. And you also have a blog. You've got this gorgeous website. I love the colors on your website, by the way. Blue is such a calming color. And if you guys want to see this, it's leahdrew.com, leahdrew.com. Such a beautiful website. I love the picture of you with the hula hoop behind your hat.
The
It's
hula hoop.
adorable.
Yeah, the hula hoop has been a really special part of my healing journey. It's helped me learn to connect with flow. And finding that flow state is a little bit more of a feminine energetic quality where you can tap into that flow and you can kind of get lost in it a little bit. And it helps with taking all of that like logical mind and I have to do this, I have to do that, and thinking of all the things that we as humans are thinking about all the time. And it kind of puts it to the back burner for a minute. And it allows you to just drop in and be fully present. And that actually allows your nervous system to drop into that relaxation response and find a parasympathetic state, which is where you can heal. And so thank you. I love that photo with the hula hoop. And I'm really proud of my website. It's something that I've put a lot of focus and attention into, and I've made it very me, and I did it myself.
You did. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous. Love it.
Thank you.
But yeah, so what you're saying is I need to get a hula hoop.
It's super fun. Maybe not a hoop. There's a lot of different kinds of flow toys that you can just play around with. There's like ropes, there's toy, there's things on strings, there's hula hoops, there's all these different fun things that you can kind of just experiment with.
Speaking of all these different fun things, you have several different services on your website, including the speaking and consulting, the one-on-one coaching, the online courses. How often do you run your online courses? Is this a thing where you just keep them going all the time because you have people constantly coming to you needing them?
That's a great question. So I recently made a really big change to my most common program, which is called the Mind Body Initiative. And this is my signature 16-week experience. And this used to be run live. And so I would do it about twice a year. I'm now shifting this because I see a need for this program to be accessible for anyone and everyone when they need it. And so I'm shifting this to be a self-run experience. This is going to be launching in November of 2023. And this is going to be a self-paced experience for you to dive into every aspect of your healing and your growing journey. So we look at your functional movement. We look at your physical health. We look at your stress levels. We look at your mindset. We look at your beliefs. We look at your trapped emotions and the trauma that you've had in your past experiences through life. We look at a lot of things that start to give you an opportunity to be the observer and step back and recognize all of the things, physical, mental, emotional, and energetic, that do influence your health, your healing, your mental wellness, right? Your emotional health, all of these things. And ultimately become a more empowered self-healer, because I know what it's like to feel overwhelmed and not know what to do for yourself because there's so much information out there, or because maybe your doctors and your medical care team isn't really helping you understand. And so my intention is to shine a light on as many possible doors around healing so that people can choose which door needs a little bit more attention and which door to continue walking through and learning more about. And so the Mind Body Initiative is everything that I've learned for myself. I've watched it change so many people's lives who have come through the program. Some of the coolest parts is that some of my best friends have come through this program when it was a live program, and they've expressed how much it's changed their life. And that's just a total honor for my best friends to come and take this program because they're like, I've watched you. I've I've loved what you've done. And you not only walk the walk, but you talk the talk, right? And so did I do that backwards? You talk the talk and you walk the walk. And so yeah, this is something I'm feeling really excited about. And there's going to be an option here for anybody that does want to go deeper for coaching to opt in to the self-paced program and weekly group coaching with me or with another coach and supporter. So that's one of the things that I offer. And then I always offer one-on-one coaching with people once a week or twice a month, depending on what feels good for them. And then I do coaching and consulting for different businesses, corporations, and speaking engagements as well.
Leah Drew, changing lives. Love it.
I'm trying.
It has come to that point where it's time that I ask my very last question. It is always my favorite question of the episode. People are going to get tired of hearing me say that eventually. But what is one thing that you truly love about yourself that's not related to your physical appearance?
Hmm. I love my resiliency. It's something that has I've learned over time and through navigating the challenges and the darkness that come with life. And by using the tools that I have learned to support myself, to regulate my emotions, to regulate my nervous system, to navigate relationships, communication, resiliency is something that I'm really proud of. And it's allowed me to feel really confident in not just myself, but in helping others navigate challenging situations as well.
If you've enjoyed tonight's episode, please make sure you check out the episode description. You'll find links there on how you can learn more about this guest, links to connect with them on social media, and how to support the podcast. Remember, I don't get paid to do this. My boss is a bit tight fisted, but I can say that. I work for myself.